Good afternoon, evening, everybody. We're going to give folks just a few minutes to trickle on in before we get started with our presentation and Q&A for the evening. Welcome, everybody, to our Aggie orientation for families for the College of Biological Sciences. Thank you for joining us this evening so we could share more with you all about the college and resources available to your students. Myself and Dr. Michelle Igo will be your main presenters today. What we'll do is tell you a little bit about the college. Dr. Igo will share some information about our majors and some resources available to your students. And then I am the director of the Biology Academic Success Center, which is your advising hub. And I will share more about advising and resources before we enter a Q&A session. Thank you to all the families that did submit Q&As beforehand. We'll try and get to those questions. And then you will also be able to submit some Q&As into the Zoom Q&A box. So make sure that you do that, because when we get to the end, a couple of our advisors and faculty members, including myself, will be able to answer some of those questions for you all. So without further waiting, Dr. Michelle Igo, who is our Associate Dean of Undergraduate Academic Programs, will kick us off.
Thank you, Ebony. Well, welcome to our family orientation welcome for the College of Biological Sciences. And as many of you know, we're unique, we're fairly unique in that we're a college devoted to the life sciences. And that gives us a lot of flexibility and a lot of opportunities to help students really get a full grasp on the diverse options available in the life sciences. So this slide just shows you some of the, most of our majors. And they can be very general, such as our biological sciences degree. And then we have some very unique majors, such as the marine coastal sciences major, which is a multi-college major that draws on both life sciences, geology, and agriculture. So one of the things that we like to talk about in terms of CBS is that students have the ability to explore many, many different options. And in the next section, when they're talking about advising, they'll go over some of the details about these specific majors. Go to the next slide. So what is the difference in our majors? The majors differ in what questions they ask. And that's about, in many ways, what are you most interested in? Are you interested in molecules? So are you more interested in the quantitative or chemical aspects of the life sciences, cell biology, organismal biology, or ecosystems? Are you interested in very small scale things like viruses, or are you interested in populations and population dynamics? All of those are areas of study in the biological sciences. And one of the unique features is that we have faculty teaching, particularly in our core courses, who specialize in that entire spectrum. Some people are very much into the molecular, quantitative, aspects of biology. And then we also have an excellent faculty involved in more large scale issues like ecosystems, medical issues, etc. So one of the things to think about when you're trying to decide a major is, what type of questions do you want to know? Are you a student who, or a person who is interested in why? Why does this happen? You know, why is it that certain animals have certain diets? Why is it that populations evolve in a certain way? That's one type of question. The other is how. In other words, how is it programmed into a cell? The systems aspect. In other words, how does a single cell become a whole organism? And different students over the course of their time in CBS will find that they might like the more detailed, or they might like the big picture. And so one of the things that you have is you're going to be part of a core curriculum. And in the first year, you'll be exploring from an atom all the way to an ecosystem. And that's our freshman core. And in our upper division core, you're going to learn about genetics, cell biology, biochemistry, and all the other things. Because one of the natures of biology at this time, of the life sciences, is we're very interdisciplinary. And during the course of your career, you're probably going to be changing as more and more knowledge comes along. You know, people who start out in a certain field, sometimes the field disappears, or something super exciting comes along and they move into it. And during the time at UC Davis, you'll find faculty members, some of whom have always been in the same career path, and others who have bounced around because they've gotten excited about, new problems on the horizon. And let's face it, as students coming in, you're the generation that's going to be solving the next great problems, and the fields that are going to solve those problems really don't exist yet. So flexibility is a key. We also like to point out that all of our majors are pre-med track. Med schools are more and more interested in having students with a broad outlook. And so students who think that there's traditional ways to get to med school need to think and rethink that, med schools are looking for a well-rounded student, a student who not only knows about biochemistry and organic chemistry, but they also know about how society and people work, which I think is a good thing. Understanding the more human aspects is very important. And so within our majors, we allow students to get training both in the basic sciences and the STEM fields, but also have time to get some of their humanities and the other things they need for a well-rounded student. And you can find out more about that at Health Professions Advising. Next slide. So to kind of continue on this theme, we know students work hard to get to UC Davis, so just being here, your students and the family who are supporting them have achieved a great deal. That it's very competitive, and so students are going to be coming in, and instead of competing against, their high school colleagues, they're in a whole new group where there are lots of people who are all excited about being in college, excited about being biology. And one of the things that we always like to tell students is recognize your passion. The right major for you is the right major for you. If you enjoy studying for it, that's fine. I tend to like very molecular and detail-oriented things. There are other people who think I'm working on the nitty-gritty. They're not interested there. And there are other people who work on the super big picture. And for people like me, it's like, how do you ask a scientific question on such a big problem? It's coming up with what turns you on. And so the quote is, don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and then go do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And that ability to recognize your passion is going to be more important in the long run than what your particular degree is. For example, I am a professor in the microbiology department, microbiology, molecular genetics. I've never had a microbiology course in my life, but my passion led me there. I have a degree in cellular developmental biology. So, and if you talk to people across campus, the faculty members, many of us had that. So go with your passion and assume it will get you what you want. Then finally, on this, recognize that, when we're saying be glad to study, every unit of class you take, you have to anticipate 2 to 3 hours of outside class time. And it's miserable if you don't like the class. So once again, think about what you're passionate about, because that will help you, and it will help you succeed against all odds. Next slide. So how do we help our students succeed? Well, there are a number of different ways and programs. And I want to briefly introduce you to them. The first is the peer mentoring system that we have through the BioLaunch Mentor Collective. All students have just recently received an invitation to get a mentor. We've also got a special seminar called the BioLaunch Seminar. And then Ebony will come back and talk about the Academic Success Center. Next slide. So the peer-to-peer mentoring program. This program has been at UC Davis for about 3 years now. And what it is it's a program where we have continuing students in the college who have volunteered to mentor incoming students. We have over 900 volunteers right now who are waiting to be matched from students. And the letters have been going out emails have been going out this week, inviting students to sign up if they are interested in having a mentor. And one of the things we find is the mentors are, and in that letter, there will be a picture. This is a YouTube video where a mentor and a mentee talk about their experience. And what we find is that the students really like the peer mentoring program because they can ask another student things that they can't really ask a faculty member. Like, do they really mean it when they say, you have to show up the first day of class? Or one of the common questions is the bicycle laws in Davis. And can you really get a ticket? So that student peer-to-peer, in addition, during the course of the quarter, a lot of times new students feel like they're the only ones feeling like maybe it was a mistake to come here, because it was so much easier for me in high school. And since a lot of our students had that same experience, particularly during their first quarter, having a more senior student who just went through the class with Dr. Igo and saying, yes, that what they're saying is true, or Dr. Keene, who's also on this call. But here's what you do. Here are the resources available. I think that's very helpful. And we get rave reviews. And I think one of the things that's telling is a large proportion of our mentees become mentors for future classes. And so we don't monitor the mentoring in that the students can talk about whatever they want, but there also is a little bit of a system where a mentor or mentee can contact the Mentor Collective program and say that there's a potential problem and that they need resources. And the Mentor Collective reaches out to either the BASC, my office, or other campus resources to help the student in whatever form the student needs. Next slide. The other thing we have is called the BioLaunch Seminar Series. There's one for freshmen called BIS 05 and one called BIS 198, which is for transfer students. This is a 1-unit pass, no pass class. It's only open to incoming CBS students. And I am one of the instructors, and we expect everyone to receive a passing grade. The seminars meet once a week, and it's a great way to learn about CBS and the resources available. And the format varies week to week. We have faculty from different CBS departments and majors who will come in and talk about their research, why they think that particular major is a good choice, and also their journey about becoming a scientist. Because sometimes students don't think that faculty members really knew they were going to be faculty members from the time they entered college. And believe me, many of us did not. We also have students, speakers from various units on campus. So for example, after the first midterm, we usually bring in people from the academic success, like tutoring centers and other things, to help students figure out, basically the question in the class is, did you like your grade on the first exam? If not, what do you do about it? And we'll have either speakers or we'll have student panels that will talk about how you can get help in a more generic way. I mean, obviously you can go talk to your professor, but this is a way for students who are a little bit uncomfortable doing that to get some support. And then finally, we have student panels on a variety of opportunities like study abroad. HPA comes in and gives a presentation. The BAS comes in right before students are signing up for classes in winter quarters and reminds them how to do it and fill out all the paperwork they need to do, or computer stuff. So the course is only offered in the fall of your first year, and students who have commented on it say that it's a really good way in which they can get accustomed to campus, and they know who to talk to. And your peer mentor is the other one. So by the combination of the peer mentor and the BioLaunch Seminar and your basket advisors, students have a really good support system. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ebony.
Hi again, everyone. As I previously mentioned, I am Ebony Blackwell. I have the honor of being the director of the Biology Academic Success Center. I lead a team of about 18 academic advisors, in addition to a few peer advisors, and we work with your students on a regular basis through advising appointments and different academic programming to make sure they have a smooth transition into college and smooth academic years, and also can graduate on time and get them out of school and into either maybe a graduate program or their career. So what I would like for you to do during this time is to make sure you have your phone ready, because I'd like you all to take a picture of a few slides that have important information on it. And this first one is important because it has our ticket system email on it. That ticket system email, cbsundergrads@ucdavis.edu, is particularly important because if your students have general questions, they can always reach out to that email. It will go directly to myself and our front desk advisor, who monitors that inbox and can answer your students' questions or point them in the right direction. Awesome. So take a picture of this one too, because that bas.biology.ucdavis.edu is the link to our website. And this is pretty much the portal your students need to access their advisors. So here you'll be able to log into the website. They can click on academic advising. Well, they'll be able to schedule their appointments. They'll be able to click on the majors and minors link to learn more about majors, see some academic plans that outlines sample plans that outline different courses they might want to consider within their major. There's links to other resources. And under that one that says student resources, there's going to be a link for newly admitted students. That's particularly important for your students coming in, that has a plethora of information related to their needs in the process of getting started, a ton of how-to videos that our peer advisors have made for us, and just relevant links and information related to them starting their education career at UC Davis. So in BASC, like I mentioned, we have a bunch of advisors who are there to work with students, and they take appointments via both in person and virtually via either Zoom or phone. That started with the pandemic, and we surveyed our students last year to see how they felt about the different ways they could get advising appointments. And a lot of them said they wanted to keep virtual options moving forward, even outside of the pandemic, once we return to campus. So moving forward, your students will always be able to schedule an advisor one of three ways. In person, they can have a 30-minute appointment or they can also have that appointment via phone or Zoom. They just log onto the website and select that they want to schedule an appointment. These 30-minute appointments are for your lengthier conversations, like making academic plans, talking about changing a major and what their options are, or minors and how to declare one. We also do mandatory advising for our transfer students, and sometimes when students get in academic difficulty, that's when we have to have those academic probation and subject to disqualification conversations. But I am confident none of your students are going to have those issues because we're here to support them. We also have virtual express advising. Our express advising is only going to be held virtually. These are your quick 15-minute appointment sessions. They do not need to schedule an appointment. This is like drop-in hours. If we were on campus, they would just be able to, as if they were dropping into our office. You go on the website, you click on express advising, it immediately signs a student up and puts in like a mock waiting room while they wait on an advisor to grab them out of that virtual waiting room and have their quick appointment. Students will always be able to access these quick appointments virtually moving forward. That way, students don't have to make their way across campus in between classes or commute into campus if they're not living on campus to schedule an appointment. They'll just be able to drop into that virtual waiting room and talk with an advisor. The different reasons they might do this are for quick schedule changes and questions about campus resources. Maybe they need to drop a class. Anything that's a quick 15-minute or less conversation can be handled during a virtual express advising session. So in addition to our wonderful staff of academic advisors, we also have faculty advisors that we call master advisors. These folks work with students tailored to their specific majors. So faculty who work within those majors serve as master advisors. There's a list of them on our website. They're great folks to talk to about career opportunities, undergraduate research opportunities, graduate school exploration, and whatnot. Then we have our peers that work in our office as well. These are current CBS undergraduate students who are there to also do some appointments with students and can talk about courses, scheduling. They're usually great because a student's more likely going to want to listen to a peer about how good a class is and good GE classes to take than anyone else. That peer advice is always welcomed. And we also have a counselor who works part-time in our department so that they can connect with students. If your students are having any like mental health concerns or anxieties, and they want to connect with a counselor, we have one on staff who is always ready to take appointments. So take a picture of her email address as well. You can always point your student to them, or they can connect directly with their advisor or that CBS undergrad's email that I told you all about to schedule an appointment with Megan Brown, our part-time mental health, student health and counseling counselor. All right, so I also want to talk to you all about a very important change that is going to happen as your students are transitioning into their post-secondary education. As K-12 our youth, we have access to their education records and whatnot through the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. But as soon as your children turn 18 and they enter post-secondary education, you all no longer have access to their academic records and any data within their profiles at the institution unless your children, well, they're not children, you're young adults now, fill out a waiver that gives you rights to discuss their academic records, learn about their progress, know about their access to student health and counseling services and whatnot. Anything related to their records within the institution becomes private, only accessible to your students. And this is very important. I'm a parent too, and we often have parents that want to call in and rightfully so, just discuss their students, help their students. They want to connect with somebody to figure out how they can help them or how they can connect them to different resources. But FERPA, and we have no control over this, FERPA does not allow that unless your students have filled out this waiver. So if that is something you all should discuss with your students, see if they are interested in signing that waiver, if you are going to want to discuss anything that is protected by this Privacy Act. But on another note, our students' families are growing. They have access to a lot of resources on campus. And we want you all to be familiar with those resources so that this is a touch point and a way you can check in with your students. If they're talking to you about their academic progress or their struggles, or even if you just want to be proactive and talk to them and check in with them, good questions to ask, or like what type of resources are you all taking advantage of on campus? Some of those are such as success coaching and learning strategies. This is great workshops that your students can access that talk about time management, test taking skills, one-on-one coaching to help them. They also have tutoring on campus through the Academic Assistance and Tutoring Center, and math, chemistry, biology, physics, stats, and writing. They do a number of workshops, and students can access that in many places on campus. They have health professions advising, which is a phenomenal resource if your student is interested in any like professional school post UC Davis, like medical school, veterinarian school, dental school. This is a form of advising where you're definitely want to encourage your student to take advantage of. They'll give guidance on how to apply to those professional schools, what prerequisites they'll need, and how, say they're interested in more than one, they can talk with your student about what prereqs they might need for pre-vet versus pre-med, to help your students prepare for those professional schools in addition to their academic advising. It's important here not to confuse the BASC advising, though, that your students are required to go through for academic advising, and the advising support they can get through health professions advising that strictly gives them tips and tidbits of information on preparing for professional school. We also have the Undergraduate Resource Center that has workshops and little tidbits of information on how to get into different research opportunities and whatnot. And I know there are probably a ton of questions related to how our return to campus is going to be impacted by COVID-19 and the lingering pandemic. I'm happy to say that our provost on campus is an infectious disease expert as an epidemiologist. She is well versed in everything that we need to be considering to transition back to campus safely. And our college as a whole has been deeply involved in developing our COVID testing protocols and related policies and whatnot. So they are staying on top of that. But take a picture of this screen too, because this is going to be very important. If you have questions related to this, to the pandemic, the return to campus, COVID policies, public health guidance, this is the website or the number you're going to want to call to stay up to date on what's going on. There's also a campus ready website that you can continually look to for updates. But this helpline and this website will be available throughout the fall quarter to keep everybody updated on changes. And as we all know, this is a very dynamic time. And unfortunately, and we need to remain flexible related to it because it's always changing and we're always learning something new. But I feel very confident under the provost's leadership that as things change, she will make the best calls and decisions on how we need to pivot and what decisions we need to make to ensure that our students, faculty, staff, and whole UC Davis community are staying safe and healthy. Take a picture of this one too. I told you, lots of pictures. These are important registration dates and times that I want you all to be familiar with that you can check in with your students. We want to make sure that everyone is registering for their classes on time and it's familiar with all of the different windows and opportunities to register. Coming up on October 16th through 18th is Pass One for our transfer students. So that is any day now, so be prepared for that. BASC will be providing registration support. You should have received, all of our transfer students should have received an email letting them know how they can log into that webinar if they have any questions day of registration. Then August 23rd through September 3rd are Pass Two windows. So in case you're not familiar with pass one, pass two lingo, pass one means that first window of time that students can log in to register. It closes after those dates, and then after a period of time, it will reopen again, and that's pass two, where they can log in, add or drop, change their schedule however they would like, move classes around. Maybe they decided they actually don't want to go to that 8 a.m. chemistry class, and they want to see if there's one available later in the day. They can do that during pass two. Also, if there's a class that they really want to take, but there wasn't room during their pass one, they can waitlist for it during their pass two time. So it's really good for you all to know this. So if you're sitting down with your students during registration time, you'll be familiar with that and can help them and remind them about it. Open registration starts on September 4th and will remain open for a couple of weeks. And then they can start readjusting schedules again on September 18th. Also, all of your students were supposed to have an Aggie Advising appointment as incoming first year and transfer students. If they have not done so, please encourage them to log on to the the BASC website and schedule those Aggie Advising appointments. Even if they've already registered, our first year students have registered already this week, then that's okay. They can still schedule an Aggie Advising appointment and talk to an advisor about the schedule they picked so that they can be prepared for those past two windows. And then each of your students will be able to participate in our orientation week that starts on the week of September 17th. I believe a couple days before that, they'll have their move-in days and they'll dive into orientation programming on the 17th with a welcome from our dean. And there'll be more details about these events as we get closer to them with dates and times and locations. All will be sent out to students via the orientation team. So that's all that I have. We are now going to jump into your frequently asked questions. You all had the opportunity to submit some questions when you registered for the webinar. So we're going to answer a few of those first. And then Daniela, one of our BASC advisors, will lead us through Q&As that you guys have been submitting in the Q&A box so far in the Zoom chat today. So what research experiences exist for CBS students and what support is available? This is a great question, and I will defer to Dr. Igo and Dr. Keene to tell you more about that.
Yes, this is a very important topic, and for most students who are interested in STEM fields, particularly also in the biological sciences, getting exposure to real research in a faculty member's lab is a highly desired thing. Normally, what ends up happening is students begin by taking the BioLaunch Seminar. Faculty are actually going to be talking in that seminar about how to get into research. There are lots of research experiences available on campus. We also have a lot of faculty because because we have the professional schools. There are also faculty members in Sacramento over at the med school, at the vet school, and other places that are very excited about taking on students. So if students are willing to get in a car and drive across the causeway to go to Sacramento, they have a plethora of opportunities. So the thing is that we usually recommend students to kind of take it easy their first quarter. And part of that's just become a climate to campus that they've got a whole class in equivalent to learning how to navigate the university. And we don't give them any credit for that. And so that first quarter can be very tight. And so taking it easy and really exploring what the options are and don't think you have to jump in is a great way to spend your first quarter, for them to spend their first quarter. Susan?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said, Michelle. I guess the other thing I would recommend is that students, if they know an area they're interested in, they read the websites for every department because there's a list of what the faculty do. And some students have told me that they've gone through that list and read and suddenly found a lab and thought, well, this is the lab I think I want to work in. And if you should always have multiple choices ready because the faculty can only take a small number of students at each time. So if a student skims the faculty research interest list and picks out 4 or 5 that look interesting, then they could contact the faculty member maybe by the end of the first year. I also want to say that the college was able to give the students access to some of the research meetings in the medical school during the pandemic. So even if something goes wrong and we have to go back on online, there may be still ways to continue to know what research is going on the campus and to get involved. So it can be in your first year or it can be in your second year, are really good times to start thinking what lab you'd like to join.
Great. What career opportunities can a CBS major expect, and how should a student prepare? Dr. Keene, Dr. Igo, do you have any?
Well, there are so many careers in biology that I think the best thing to do when you start to pick 1 or 2 that you're interested in is to go and see the master advisor for your major or for the major that might encompass that career. The BASC website also holds some video interviews with people who took on careers that were biology related, and you can watch those. They're very short little videos, interviews with people who say went into fish and wildlife. What did they do? How did they do it? What degrees did they have before they started their jobs? Those kinds of questions. But as Professor Igo said, this field is so rich that you would really want to try and target your question, target the answer a little more by asking someone related who knows more about the subject related to the question and to the research area or the work area.
And I'd also say that, you know, as parents, you understand what it means to be in the workforce. And a lot of times for careers in the biological sciences, we're very interdisciplinary at this point. And being able to work in a team, being able to write, communicate, these are things that are very important. You know, a lot of students, when we're talking to them about their, you know, grades and things of that sort, the grade gets them the interview, but then they have to get the job or they have to get into the professional school, et cetera. So, you know, trying to get students to recognize that I got all A pluses, but if you don't get along with people, you're going to have less of fewer job opportunities. And I think guidance from wiser and older, or maybe not so wise, but those of us who have been around for a while, about what those skills are that make a good employee, a good team member, etc. And then if you have those skills and you can do problem solving, that's one of the reasons why people can switch fields, because they have the basic skills. They can work in an interdisciplinary thing, and you go in as a biologist, and the next thing you know you're doing is you're an educational specialist. It is that fluid. And so that's what I would say is recognize the preparing has many different aspects.
I just would like to echo that. And I just want to say myself, I have a bachelor's and a master's in biology, but I chose that I really would just like to work with students in STEM. And you just never know where your degree will take you, but there are a ton of opportunities, and want to just remind you all about what Dr. Igo said at the beginning about following where your passions lie and really where you enjoy working, because it's 40 hours a week or longer. It can be a long time to spend somewhere that you don't really enjoy it. So just encourage your students to find something that they're passionate about in their biology exploration. All right, what are non-major requirements for my student? Jeff, do you have some thoughts on this one?
Hi, yes, I do. So non-major requirements include things like our composition requirements. Students in our college are required to take a lower division and an upper division composition class. And this is after they've completed the entry-level writing. then they have 2 more classes. GE classes, general education classes, are considered non-major requirements. There are specific unit requirements and GPA requirements that are both major and non-major. So students need to maintain a certain number of units each quarter, and then overall they have to get up to at least 180 units. GPA has to be at least a 2.0 for overall GPA and for major and upper division major requirements for graduation. Those are the main ones.
Thank you, Jeff. Right, so that was the trend for our questions that were submitted as you all registered. We'd like to thank you all. Before we jump into the Q&A, I just want to thank you all for attending, for submitting your questions, and the ones that you have submitted into the chat that we are about to jump into with the help of Daniela.
Excellent. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Daniela Teles, and I will be your Q&A moderator today. A lot of the questions in the chat that are coming in are regarding the how to secure a research and or an internship opportunity. How far in advance should students be reaching out to faculty members? And what is it that faculty members really want to see in those students who are eager to jump into those opportunities?
Well, I think you want to start thinking about it and preparing as soon as you get to campus. And part of it is in first year, you're going to be in the core biology curriculum. And as I mentioned, you're going to be looking at molecules and biochemistry and structures all the way up to doing field work. There's medical careers, there's careers in plant sciences, et cetera. And a lot of students who are coming from, high school don't even realize that there are fields out there that they might be passionate about because they've never been exposed. So the first year is about finding out what topics excite you and taking the opportunity. For example, in your freshman year, if let's say you're interested in the how cells divide, there are a number of faculty who work on that, and they might not be able to take a student at this time, but having a student approach them saying, I'm very interested in this topic. Faculty like that. They like to talk about what their work is. Attending faculty office hours during your first year and talking with the graduate student TAs. Graduate student TAs have a massive influence on the faculty members. For my lab, when I was still running a wet lab, if a graduate student said, here is a fantastic undergrad, you really need to take them on, I trusted the people who worked for me. And so there's lots of different ways in which students can use that first year very productively by networking and talking to faculty members, going after seminars, because there's seminars on campus all the time. And our undergrads don't take advantage of it, but someone showing that much interest in someone's research is a good thing. So I think it's a better approach. Once again, if you're passionate about something and a student is saying, oh, I really want to work on this, this is the most important problem, and a faculty member hears they're passionate about research in their field, they're more likely than if someone writes me an email and says, I'm looking for research, can I come to your lab? So and once again, these are those networking skills and people skills that we're talking about that are going to be so important for the job force. So it's not a waste of time to really invest in learning how to, what is it called? The elevator pitch to somebody when you're talking about what you're excited about. Susan?
Yeah, again, I would second everything that Michelle just said. I think, but there are students who do get into research labs in their first quarter if they really know what they want to do. There are also some internships. I see people were asking about internships in there are clinics that medical students run for various special interest groups, sometimes in low-income neighborhoods, sometimes for people with a certain interest, sometimes for drug addiction problems, a range of things, and students volunteer and go and work in those clinics. But I think the important thing is to not let your academics get led astray by the desire to spend all the time doing all of these other things, especially with internships. And if you go to Health Professions Advising, one of the things they're going to tell you is the first year you really need to focus on getting your feet on the ground and figuring out how to work in an academic, a more intense academic environment than you were probably used to. So you can explore, you can ask questions. If you're really gung-ho, you can go ahead and contact the faculty member. As Michelle said, they may not have a vacancy, but if they know you're out there, that's terrific, because maybe they'll think, well, if next time a vacancy comes up, there was this person who wrote me. So you can do all of these things. And one of the most important things is to ask enough questions to make sure your degree gets tailored to you, right? There's no one right way to do the university. Anything that, if you want to do it, we should be able to find a way in general to make it possible if you keep asking us long enough. So I think that's important. Can't hear you.
I was going to say, excellent. Since we're talking about our new academic environments for students, can you talk a little bit more about the grading system used, the 4.0, the letter grades, all of that?
Okay, there's a range of grading systems on the campus. From the intro bio series does not grade on a curve. We grade on a straight scale where we specify a certain percentage. If you want an A in the class, you have to get 90% of the total points available in the course, but we don't limit the number of people who can get that 90%. Anybody who gets 90% will get an A. Whereas if in other classes they grade on a curve where they're scoring relative to the students are scored relative to each other, and there they typically set the percentages of people who can get an A or a B or a C. And so intro bio doesn't do that, and intro bio doesn't do that because it wants the students to work together. We want the students to help each other, not to be in a competitive environment. So make sure that everybody, I mean, in our dream, everybody would know 90% of the material and get 90% of the questions right. 80 would be a B, 70 would be a C, 60 is a D. And I do need to point out that the standard that everyone has to have here is a 2.0, and a 2.0 is a C. So if a student is getting C minuses, they are below the expected standard, and they can't have an average in that range. And sometimes when students come into campus, they're thinking, yeah, C minus, that sounds close enough, right? It's not close enough. You're required to get a 2.0. So it's important to students to sort of recognize it may be a little harder than they thought it was going to be, and they may have to step up their game a bit to get the grades that they used to get. But if we let you in here, we're pretty confident that you can do it. You just have to find the time, the energy, and the need to request help to be able to do it. So that's all I'll say. Michelle, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, wasn't sure if part of the question was about letter grades versus pass, no pass. And one of the things is we encourage in CBS, and actually we required letter grades. And part of that's because a lot of professional programs actually require that a student, for example, get a C in a class, or they cannot go to like nursing school or something like that. So having the expectation, because a lot of our students are going to be going on to other programs, and one of the reasons we require it for everybody is because our students move around so much that freshmen come in thinking they want to do one thing, and by the time they're seniors, they wish they had done something differently in terms of their grading scheme. So everybody has letter grades for our classes. A passing grade is considered C minus and above for a letter grade. An area of, for a letter grade, C minus and above is what you need to move on for a lot of different courses, right? And in pass, no pass, C minus and above is a pass, right? The challenge comes in is sometimes that students can get through the university by getting a D minus, and that is acceptable, I guess. But it really does havoc to their GPA. So I don't know if that answered the question. The student can still move on, but we really encourage students to try to get C's in their classes, and that would be letter grade wise. And I hope I didn't confuse people.
I would just like to throw out there that we encourage our students to get a C or above. I just want
Sorry, yes, I'm sorry.
if you can do better, please do better, because it's going to help your GPA, to help those applications to graduate school and all that. But C, it's passing, and that's fine, but C or above.
I would like to add that there is a small period of transition for some of our students. So if you do get to see your grades dipping a little bit, just know that it's normal, right? Think of that as your baseline. It can only get better, but it will take work and dedication. I also want to point out that we have one of our wonderful peer advisors. So Liz Macias on the, I don't want to say call, but on the webinar. So if any of our participants have questions about the student experience, feel free to put that in the chat. In the meantime, I also wanted to give our faculty members a little bit of a break and switch gears to course availability, so advising questions. So we have a couple of people wondering about the chemistry availability. So we all noticed that after pass one, there were not a lot of seats left, and we're wondering, what is the backup plan?
Jeff, feel free to jump in here if you'd like. I can answer too.
Sure. The good news is, I think I saw an email today that the chemistry department said they were going to open up more sections for the chemistry 2A courses during pass 2. Is that right? So that may relieve some of the stress that is going on because of the chemistry classes. But our major requirements and GE requirements are flexible enough so that if students don't take the courses that we've recommended they take during the first quarter, there's plenty of time to catch up later. We have students all the time who maybe only get one of their major classes, or even no major classes their first quarter. And instead they may take a composition class or a general education class and just fill up their schedule with those classes. And then in the next quarter, they're more likely to get into the classes that they need. And we're always available to help them work that out. But we do have a lot of flexibility. And if you look at, I know I saw a question in the Q&As about the worksheet. There's a checklist for the major requirements. And if you go to our BASC website and go to majors and minors and go to majors and pick any of those majors, the majors will have not only the course requirements, the checklist, but also a sample 4-year plan. And you can look at that and you can see there's quite a bit of flexibility in spreading out the requirements over 4 years. So I know it can be really stressful not to get the classes that you want your first quarter, but it all works out in the end.
I
Definitely.
would also like to say that the dean of the College of Biological Sciences and the deans of the other colleges are working together in an over-enrollment committee. And what we are doing is as students are signing up for classes and we're seeing these wait lists, they are trying to come up with plans for opening up new sections. And that's what Jeff was referring to. We recognized that chemistry was a problem, and the dean took that to the dean of letters and sciences, and we're working on those kind of things. So, one of the challenges, of course, is when you're trying to accommodate so many students, it's not clear how many students are going to want into a particular course, and sometimes they will miscalculate. And so right now, the dean is working on that, and we are opening additional sections, and I think that's going to be continuing up through the fall.
Excellent. So we have a room for perhaps 1 or 2 more questions, and some of the remaining questions we have on the chat. So I'll read this one. Can students move around with their specific major within biological sciences program? If so, how easy or difficult is this?
Or they're asking if they can change majors, Daniela, move around? Yes, students can change majors within the College of Biological Sciences. It's probably easier to do that than to change majors out of the College of Biological Sciences, especially early on. Because a lot of our majors take the same courses those first couple of years as they're building their foundation. So it's easier to maneuver between different majors. If your student is realizing that they really like a certain topic or course of study, like that why and how that Michelle was mentioning, they can do that by submitting a change of major petition after their first quarter. They have to get through the first quarter. Change of major petition in OASIS, which is their student portal that accesses different petitions and whatnot that they should be familiar with by now. And there is more information on the BASC website about it if they're not. But they can submit that change of major. And again, like I said, early on, the better, because once they start getting higher and higher up into those more specific courses, they will run against a unit cap that all students are required to stay under for graduation. And it will be harder to finish a degree within that unit cap the further they are in a degree. So they're going to want to do it early in those first couple of years for it to be easier on your student.
Awesome. So you all heard it is easy to switch within our college because we all share our core curriculum. So math, chem, biz, bio, all of those classes. We do have some questions with regards to the timing to apply to programs to hospital volunteering, other extracurriculars. So we have some attendees that are concerned both about their students need to acclimate to their new environment, but also hearing that these opportunities are highly competitive and they're perhaps on a first come first served basis. Any comments?
I think it's once again, it is this balancing act, and there are certain labs that are very competitive, you know, like, and part of this is based on, you know, students talking to each other. And I'm thinking actually, maybe this is a good question for our peer advisor to talk about the student experience when it comes to trying to find labs.
Yeah, so one really good, I think, resource that Davis has is Handshake. So a lot of labs will post like any jobs they have on there, and you can get like notifications. Usually I get emails like, oh, this like area posted a job. So regularly checking your email is a good way to find lab. And also in your classes. So a lot of times when you reach your upper division courses, you'll have smaller classes, especially when you get more into your major. And talking to your professor during office hours is a really good way to get like information on what they're working on or what they see other people working on. But I feel like for at least me during my first year, it took me a while to get used to the pace of UC Davis. So I didn't really look into researching my first year. It was more my second and third.
I just want to reiterate too, it's all about balance, and a lot of post-secondary programs or graduate programs and professional schools, they really just want, and Michelle mentioned this before, to see a well-rounded student. So no, students can be personable, they balance their activities well, they were maybe involved in some clubs, and maybe it's not research, but it's volunteering hours, and they just want to know that students can handle workload, have a dedicated interest and all of that. So it's all about balance, that it doesn't have to be like they need to get a research opportunity in a microbiology lab to, like Michelle was saying, to go on and be a microbiologist. They probably could have volunteered at a veterinarian clinic, and just showing that they're able to dedicate their time and energy into something, it goes a long way with those applications into graduate schools too.
Another area in which we have is also something called the cures. And the, I'm sorry, my dog in the background wants to go for a walk. I do, my apologies.
You know, I think your dog is also trying to tell you that. So we probably, this is
Oh.
our time to wrap up.
Okay, he knows more than me. But we have class-based research opportunities called Cures in the freshman year, where students will work on a team project. We also have things that are clubs that actually work out of like the biomaker space and other things where students can have building up school skills. For example, you can take a module on how to do a certain technique. And so there's a lot of things that you can do which require a small commitment of time during the first year.
Thank you, Michelle. And thank you to all of our panelists that have helped us out today, answering questions and moving that along. We've come to time. We are at time to close out this webinar. It's 5:17 now here in California. So if you all still have some really pertinent lingering questions, your students can email that cbsundergrads@ucdavis.edu. That's our front desk. And our front desk advisor will either answer those questions or get them along to maybe an advisor that can help you and your student out. So again, thank you for joining us this evening. And we all look forward to meeting your students in person this fall.